Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into our latest vlog here on the Gavin Partridge channel. We're doing another UK general election opinion poll tracker video. So we're going to be having a look at the latest prediction from Electoral Calculus based upon the opinion polls that were conducted last month in April 2023. We're having a look at their latest forecast, and then we'll have a look at the opinion polls that prediction is based upon. We've got local elections coming up tomorrow across many parts of the country, so we'll be having a look at an opinion poll that's been released earlier on today from Survation for tomorrow's local elections and seeing what they are forecasting. So if you could please like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much everybody for doing that. We do at least one of these tracker videos every month, so I don't get a chance to upload as much as I like to on this channel, but you know, at least one or two videos appear most months. So if you want to, you know, please give us a sub, and thank you so much everybody for doing that. Right, so all of that said, I think we shall now go to Electoral Calculus and we shall have a look at their latest predictions. So in 3, 2, 1, here it is, and they are predicting Electoral Calculus this month that Labour will win the next general election, and they will win it with a landslide majority of 168 seats. That is a massive overall majority for Labour being predicted at the next UK general election. That is quite significantly down on the previous month, though. So that is almost 100 seats lower compared to the prediction from last month. I think last month they predicted Labour would get a majority of 264, and now they're predicting Labour to get a majority of 168. So quite a significant change in the overall majority prediction there for Labour in a month. So we'll have a look and see what's going on with the polls that prediction is based upon now. So we've got our party column just here: Conservative, Labour, Liberal Democrat, Reform, Green, SNP, Blythe, and others. Down here, these are the 2019 votes and seats, and this is the predicted part of the chart here. So we can see that in 2019, the Conservatives have 44.7% of the vote, which gave them 365 seats. Labour on 33% of the vote with 203 seats. Liberal Democrats were on 11% of the vote, nearly 12%, gave them just 11 seats. Reform, or Brexit Party as it was then, were on 2.1% and had no seats. Greens were on 2.8%, had 1 seat. SNP were on 4% and had 48 seats, and Blythe were on 0.5% and had 4 seats. So for the prediction, they're currently forecasting the Conservatives to be on 29.3% of the vote, which is a slight improvement on the scenario that they was forecasting last month. Labour on 44% of the vote, which is a slight reduction in their predicted share. Liberal Democrats on 9.3%. I don't think there's much change with that. Reform on 6%, Green on 5%, SNP on 3.7%, which is a little bit down on what they were being forecast to get last month, applied on 0.5%. So the central prediction in terms of seats for the Conservatives now is 169 seats. Of course, there is a margin of error within that, so at the low end they could go down to 65 seats. At the high end they could be on 284, which would, you know, in the circumstances not be too bad for them. Labour has a central prediction of 409 seats. Again, the margin of error could take them down to 294 at the low end. At the high end, they could be as high as 517. The Liberal Democrats on 16 seats with the central prediction. At the low end, they could go down to just 8 seats. At the high end, they could get 32. Reform at the low end and the central prediction have no seats. At the high end, they could get 1 seat. Greens have 1 seat, either high, middle, or low end prediction. SNP on 32 seats with the central prediction, which is a little bit down on what they was being forecast to get last month. High end 47, at the low end 14, applied on 4. So that gives a central prediction for Labour of an overall Labour majority at the next UK general election of 168 seats. So that's very close to the 1997 result, actually. Not all that far away at all from the 1997 result that we see there, which was an incredible landslide for Labour. It was the biggest Labour landslide on record, I think, and one of the biggest majorities in UK political history. But as I say, it is quite significantly down on the previous month. So let's have a look at the opinion polls that prediction is based upon and see what's happening. So these are all of them. These are all of the polls that were conducted during April 2023, starting with Survation down here from the 29th of March to 2nd of April, and finishing up with repealed Wilton just here on the 30th of April. So you can see that throughout last month, Labour has a lead within the opinion polls. There are no polls that have Labour, not leading. It is a sea of red beginning to end. But what you can see is that a lot of the leads have Labour into the teens now. So there are still a few that are getting Labour to 20%. We've got Omnisis just here that has Labour on 20% of the vote, Conservative 27, Labour 47. And we also have Omnisis again, actually just here, that has Labour on 46%, Conservatives on 26%, again, 20% lead. However, that's at the high end. We also have DeltaPoll just there, with Labour having a 21% lead, 27% Conservative, 48% Labour. However, they are at the high end. There's also on this is just there, 23%, but they are at the high end. Right, so let's have a look at the other polls then. Many of them have Labour in mid to upper teens. So, for example, it's repealed Wilton at the end of the month, I should say, has Labour with a 17% lead, which is pretty healthy, but is a little bit lower than May was polling before that. We also have DeltaPoll just here that gives Labour a 13% lead, so quite low with that one, 30%. Conservative, 43% Labour. That's about the lowest Labour lead, I think, that we had last month. There are a couple just there. YouGov and Technique give Labour 14% lead. Oh, there's this one just here. There's Survation, but gives Labour, no, this is just here, repealed Wilton gives Labour a 12% lead. That's the lowest, I think. Actually, that's wrong. It's an 11% lead. Just that. It can be quite difficult to go through the columns, and that's Opinium. Opinium on the 5th and 6th of April gave Labour a 41% of vote, Conservative 30% of vote, an 11% lead there. With Opinium for Labour. So a reduction of the Labour lead taking place, still quite solid, still healthy, well and truly into the teens, but perhaps starting to leave the 20% leads behind. So that explains why the prediction from Electoral Calculus has changed by 100 seats nearly from the April prediction to the May prediction. Nevertheless, let's not overstate this. Labour still have a very large lead within the opinion polls. All polls have Labour leading. All polls give Labour a double digits lead as well. There's no poll there that has Labour going down into single digits. And so Labour's state is very healthy. It is just that the polls have narrowed slightly, a little bit, over the previous month. So this is the latest opinion poll tracker graph at Wikipedia. You can see the reduction in the Labour share, of course. So we've got Labour with red line, of course, Conservative with a blue line, and the other parties are down here. You can see that what happened during April is that the thick red line here, which is the trend line, is moving, or has moved downwards. And also it's continuing to come down, actually, but make sure we start to level off a little bit just there. The Conservatives, you can see it, their trend line lifted up, but has now fallen very slightly, actually. This is once we go into May, of course, right at the very end, we're going into May there. But you can see that through April, we see a slight improvement in the Conservative situation, until it levels off at the end, drops slightly. Labour looks like they're still dropping, really, but may have levelled off right at the very, very end. That would be the polls that have been released so far in May, I would have thought. Of course, it's still a very large gap, so we are anywhere near where we was back at the scenario through the first half of last year, when Labour had, a less than 10% lead over Conservative. But Labour lead is still in double digits. It's like probably around 15% overall at the moment. So somewhere in the low to mid 40s for Labour, and probably somewhere in the upper 20s. You're just hovering around the 30% mark for the Conservatives. As far as the other parties are concerned, we see that the Liberal Democrats have lifted up slightly with their trend line. So that is something that often happens with the Liberal Democrats. We're going through local elections, of course. They get a little bit more airtime, they get a little bit more focus with the media and that, and people are thinking a bit more about Liberal Democrats. So very often through this time of the year, the Liberal Democrats will lift up a little bit, or if they have like a by-election type triumph, then they get a bit more publicity, and their position tends to lift up a bit. So we do see that Liberal Democrats have improved slightly. The other parties don't seem to be doing all that much differently. Reform and Green, they're hovering around where they usually are. I think the SNP has dropped a little bit. It is quite difficult to make that out, but the SNP are down here. That's where they were like earlier in the year, and right now I think we can see that the SNP are kind of down there more. So slight drop in the scenario for the SNP in their position, given all of the travails that are currently going on at the moment. This is how overall government approval is looking. So that is looking very solid still. That hasn't really changed much from last month. The government overall is still very unpopular. At the latest poll, very latest just here, we find that 62% are disapproving of the government, 17% are approving, and 21% don't know. So we still see government approval under the don't know. That is always a bad sign for the government when more people don't know compared to those that approve, then that's usually a bad sign. We have seen that the government is slightly less unpopular than it was just here, which was when Liz Truss took over, and we had the mini budget and all the problems that went with that. So that was like the absolute nadir of the government's unpopularity. Since then, the government isn't quite as unpopular as it was back last year, around September, October time, but nevertheless, the government is still really quite unpopular historically. Our governments do tend to be unpopular anyway, but that is that sort of really sort of unpopular level. You can see how that compares to like at the very start of the Conservative run of government, when they was in coalition with Liberal Democrats, of course, back in the early part of 2011. So generally you can see that throughout most of the time, this will be true with Labour governments as well. It's not particularly, but it's a Conservative government, I don't think. Generally, the government is unpopular all the time with the British people, but there are degrees of unpopularity. So you can see that, like, from the 2010-2015 Parliament, the government was generally around, I don't know, about 15-20% disapproval. It narrows as we get to the election. But even at the general election, which the Conservatives won, more people, the 2015 general election, which the Conservatives won, more people were disapproving than were approving of the government at that time. And then we see it widening through the 2015 to 2019 period, particularly just here, which was at the dying days of Theresa May's government in the middle of 2019. Just very briefly, around the beginning of the pandemic, we actually see something very unusual happening, which is the government becoming more popular than unpopular. So that is, you can see historically, that is a very, very rare scenario for the government more people to approve of the government than disapprove. That's at the beginning of the pandemic, where we're into lockdown. People tend to want to rally around the government a little bit more during true times of true national crisis, which that was, of course. So very briefly, early in 2020, we actually see approval and disapproval for the government crossing over, but it doesn't last. Doesn't last long, and by the middle of 2020, we're back into the usual scenario of the government being disapproved of compared to approved of, and that just gets wider. The gap just gets wider then, right up to now. But obviously, that was like the low point just there for the government over this run, and they have, they have improved ever so slightly, but they are still very, very unpopular. This is still a really unpopular government. So given that scenario, we've got Labour being predicted to have a 168 majority at the next election. We've got a solid, albeit it's come down a bit, but we've got a very solid Labour lead there into the teens Celsius a lot, into the teens Celsius, that's a day job kicking into the teens percent, just there, so like a 15% lead on average, which we see there as well, and a very, very unpopular government. You expect the local elections that are going to be conducted tomorrow to be really difficult for the Conservatives. That is what Survation are predicting. So this was released earlier on today. This is a poll for the local election. By the way, you do have national voting intention as well. So Survation's latest national poll has, and you'll see this, of course, when we do next month's tracker video, but they have Labour on 44% in this opinion poll for voting intention for the next election, 14% for 45% for Labour, 28% Conservative, 12% Liberal Democrats, 3% Scottish Nationalists, and 4% Green, 3% Reform, 6% others. That gives Labour a 17-seat majority, a 17-point lead, I should say. Is it 28, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45? Yes, 17%. 17. Yeah, 17% lead there for Labour on that poll. But what we're really interested in is tomorrow's local elections prediction. So this is comparing to what happened in 2019 local election. Remember, this is when we're in the closing days of Theresa May's government, before Boris Johnson becomes Prime Minister. It's before the 2019 general election in December 2019. So it's like the final local elections before the last general election, if you like. And in that local election campaign, we saw that Labour had 27%, and the Conservatives actually won that local election campaign with 31%. Very low for the Conservatives, but the Conservatives did actually come out as the biggest party there in terms of the vote share anyway. The Liberal Democrats were on 17%, the Greens were on 9% in the 2019 local election, and others were on 16%. I assume there would be a rather large polling there, poll showing for maybe it would have been Brexit Party then, or possibly UKIP. But anyway, for the latest prediction, we see that the Conservatives are on 23%. Tomorrow, if this is right. I mean, it's just a forecast, but the Conservatives are on 23%. Labour win the local elections tomorrow on 33%, which is still quite low, to be honest, for a winning party of, the main party of opposition to be winning local elections before a general election. That is still quite low, really, 33%, but they do win, and they're 10% ahead, interestingly, of the Conservatives as well. So they have a large lead, but a little bit under their national opinion poll lead. Liberal Democrats, not much change, but up one, 18%. Greens on 11%, they do a little bit better as well. And others on 14%, if the prediction is correct. So what that means, they do have a little write-up here. Our findings indicate a 6 to 7% swing from the Conservatives to Labour since 2019, that's the local election 2019, of course, which could have substantial ramifications for the makeup of England's councils. According to Professors Colin Rawlinson and Mike Thrasher, a Conservative to Labour swing of that magnitude would mean the Conservatives face losses exceeding 1,000 seats, so the Conservatives could be losing 1,000 councillors tomorrow, while Labour may see gains of around the 700 seat mark. Such a swing is notably lower, this is quite interesting though, such a swing is notably lower than indicated by national polling data, but the relationship between Westminster polling and local elections is not straightforward. Even during the Blair era, Labour had difficulty translating its commanding poll lead into local votes. Of course, local votes, local issues. Furthermore, 5,000 of the 8,000 seats in contest are located in rural Shire district councils. In these Conservative strongholds, Liberal Democrats are often the strongest challengers. A 6 to 7% lead, but is predicted there with this poll from Labour to the Conservatives would, from Conservatives to Labour, I should say, a 6 to 7% lead from the Conservatives to Labour would put Labour, if that happened in a general election, that put Labour just about on the cusp of winning an overall majority, but it would be very, very, very tight. You know, adding a little bit of tactical voting, and Labour could just get over the line. But to be comfortable, Labour are looking, I think, for like a double-digit swing, actually. So Labour are looking for like a 9-10% swing at the general election to be able to comfortably get a majority. And to get a landslide, they're going to be looking at like a 12 to 13% swing, I think. So a 6 to 7% swing, you know, it's pretty good, but because Labour so far behind after 2019 election, you know, let's go back to this, show that Labour only won 203 seats at the last election. So that's very, very low. So their worst seat showing in a general election since 1935. Because Labour are so starting off at such a low point with their seats, they do need a historically very large swing, you know, just to get a majority. A 6 to 7% swing in a general election is actually historically quite large. And double-digit swings are very rare in general elections in this country. So, like 6 to 7% swing, you know, see there for the locals, it just gets Labour on the cusp of being able form an overall majority, but obviously the swing that we see within prediction here for Labour is significantly above that. We're getting a landslide majority on the current boundaries, and with their low seats, Labour there have got a swing probably around 13 or so %. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens at the local elections tomorrow. The things to look out for: whether the Conservatives lose, whether there's a 10% lead or more from Conservative to Labour will be one thing to focus on, or whether the Labour lead is higher than that, you know, or lower than that. Whether Conservatives lose 1,000 seats or more, and if they come in above 1,000 seat losses, then I think, you know, it's going to be a very bad night for them. If they're under 1,000 seats, they'll probably breathe a bit of a sigh of relief. If Labour get 700 seats, then they're doing pretty well. And again, that's overall national swing from Conservatives to Labour will be interesting to look at as well. If it's in the 6 to 7% range, then if that was to be repeated at the general election, bear in mind we've got 12 to 18 months to go, probably before the general election. So there is time for the polls to narrow, you know, more than they are, but also to widen as well. But if there was to be a 6 to 7% swing tomorrow from Conservatives to Labour, then nationally, if that was, you know, translated into a general election, you'll see this on the BBC and that on Friday morning, then that will place Labour just on the cusp of being able to form the next government with an overall majority. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, and that's the prediction anyway from Survation for tomorrow's local government elections. Right then, so we're going to do this all over again next month. There'll be another Opinion Poll Tracker video next month, so we'll see what Electoral Calculus are predicting then. I will also try and get a video done later on this month looking at the personal ratings between star Starmer and Sunak. I wanted to do that last month, but I just didn't have time. So we're going to be looking at Ipsos MORI, their leader ratings. They have data going back many, many years. So I am going to try and get that done for you this month when the next Ipsos MORI poll is released. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please can you like, share, subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you think. What do you think is going to happen in the local elections? What do you think will be happening in the general election? Will this be a sign of a trend of the polls narrowing as we get closer to the general election? Do you think, or you know, will Labour start stretching ahead even further in the coming months? Let me know in the comments what you think. Please like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much, everybody, for doing that. Been quite a long video, this one 25 minutes, but a lot to discuss. I hope you enjoyed it. So for this one, though, that's all for now, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.